President Trump makes his triumphant return to the site of his near assassination. Senator Ron Johnson wonders about a potential second shooter at the aforementioned assassination attempt. And now the American dream costs a whopping $4.4 million. We will get into all of it. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. The collection of white dudes for Kamala is leaving a lot of people scratching their heads these days. It is evidence of a great political realignment, which we will get to momentarily. First, though, I want to tell you about Birch Gold. Text Knowles to 989898. Kamala Harris's economic plan, if you can call it a plan, is a disaster. Get ready for massive tax hikes, an almost 40% top income tax rate, 7% increase to the corporate tax, and a ridiculous capital gains tax on unrealized gains, which would tank the economy once a year. All so that she can add almost $2 trillion to the current $2 trillion deficit. You might be thinking it is time to make more of your savings tax sheltered and inflation sheltered. This is where I trust the good people at Birch Gold Group to help you like they help me. Birch Gold will assist you in converting an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Best news, you don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. Just text the word Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, to 989898. Get a free info kit on gold. There is no obligation, just information on fortifying your savings before the crazy really hits. As the exclusive gold partner of the DailyWire for the past 8 years, an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers, you can trust Birch Gold 2. Right now, text Knowles to 989898 to get your free info kit today. I have a decent percentage of my portfolio in gold. It has done me well, and I think it's worth checking out. Go text Knowles to 989898 today. Trump returns to the site of his near assassination, Butler, Pennsylvania, where he came within a hair's breadth, a 20-degree turn at the very last minute of having the back of his skull blown off by a shooter. This time, he brought some friends. Well, I guess he brought friends the first time, all of those great Trump supporters who showed up to what is now an increasingly dangerous event, a Trump rally. He brought some friends on stage, too, including one of the wealthiest, and I suppose you would say now one of the most powerful men in the world, ever since he bought X and now has part of the public square. That would be Elon Musk.
American astronauts into space. Come here. Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
You know, the true
Elon just
test
jumping
of
and
someone's
dancing
character
around
is how they behave under fire. And we had one president who couldn't climb a flight of stairs, and another who was fist pumping after getting shot. There's one request, it's very important. Register to vote. Okay? And get everyone you know and everyone you don't know, drag them to register to vote. There's only 2 days left to register to vote in Georgia and Arizona, 48 hours. Like, text people now. Now. And then make sure they actually do vote. If they don't, this will be the last election. That's my prediction.
He said a lot more, he did a lot more, but this arc shows you, I think, why people really like Elon, why Elon has a lot of credibility, why Elon has many hundreds of billions of dollars, and why Elon would endorse Trump. Because Elon and Trump have something in common besides being billionaires. Elon and Trump are both totally confident being themselves. Elon and Trump are both completely authentic. Love them, hate them, think they're weird, think they're eccentric. They don't care. They are themselves. Elon Musk comes on stage, jumping up and flailing and dancing around in exuberance. Kamala Harris pretends that her campaign is all about joy. They tried this obviously focus tested, contrived slogan for the campaign, joy. Elon actually demonstrated joy yesterday. That's what joy looks like. Joy looks kind of weird sometimes. I don't want to take this too far, but when I picture King David dancing before the Lord, that's kind of what I picture. I picture it being a little bit weird and people being embarrassed for him or having, secondhand shame for this exuberant display. But Elon don't care. Other billionaires, other very serious businessmen who own corporations and they wear neckties and things, they would have walked on stage and said, listen, here are the stakes, and I support Trump because we need to reduce regulations and increase America's competitiveness for businesses like mine. Elon doesn't do that. He just jumps up and down. He walks on stage. He's wearing the dark MAGA hat. It fits in with his aesthetic, the black clothes and the black Cybertruck. But then he's not a clown, far from it. Elon gets on stage and he explains clearly and soberly why he's supporting Trump. He says this man showed courage under literal fire. That is an important quality for a president. And he goes on in his speech to say he supports X, Y, and Z issues. And then he makes this grand point that people are going to mock him for. He says, there won't be elections if Trump loses. What does Elon mean by this? Well, he's explained elsewhere what he means by this. He means the Democrats are importing enough foreign nationals into the country, and they've been doing so for many years, but they've really ramped it up in recent years. They're importing so many foreigners into the country that the votes of Americans will not matter if Democrats win this election, especially because Kamala Harris is running on not only importing more foreigners into the country, not only are they currently giving these foreigners voter registration forms, and many of them have been caught on undercover videotapes from the Heritage Foundation and elsewhere saying that they will go out there and they will vote. But Kamala Harris is saying we're going to give these people amnesty. We're going to put them on a pathway to citizenship so they'll be able to vote legally. Some of these states are decided by 10,000 votes. Arizona was decided by 10,500 votes in 2020. Right now, there are over 200,000 voters in Arizona who might be ineligible to vote at the state and local level because they haven't provided proof of citizenship. Okay, the razor-thin margins that decide these elections compared to the millions and millions of foreigners that the Democrats are importing into the country, it's not even close. So when Elon says, look, it's game over for American sovereignty, when Donald Trump says there is no greater act of disloyalty to your country than to undermine its sovereignty, which is what Kamala Harris has done as the vice president, as the borders are, this is what they're talking about. So then, after Elon's excellent speech, or I suppose before Elon comes on stage, President Trump walks out. He opens up, he used that line that he said he was going to use, which is, as I was saying, and then he turns, and there's that graph on the screen, the graph that was the immediate cause of saving his life, because back in July, Trump pulled up a graph about immigration, and it was just at that very last minute when he goes to look at the numbers on the graph, on the chart, that his head turns and the bullet misses him. It doesn't quite miss him, but it only hits his ear. So Trump begins, as I was saying, he goes on and on, but then, timed perfectly at exactly the moment that the shots rang out, President Trump has a moment of silence for Corey Comparator, the Trump supporter who died heroically shielding his wife and kids from the assassin's bullets. And he has a moment of silence for Corey, followed by one of the most remarkable moments in not just modern American presidential politics, but in American politics, period.
It is 6:11, 12 weeks to the minute that the shooting began. I would like to ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence.
So there are no cuts in here. There was that moment of silence, the bell rings out, But this is what is really remarkable. You're hearing the beginning of what sounds like Ave Maria, and then a singer walks on stage. There are so many people here. I don't, what is it, 100,000 people or something? I mean, you can look at the aerial views. Oh, it's a lot of red MAGA hats. And they're all here, some heads bowed, listening to the Ave Maria. It was just the Hail Mary in Latin and put to music. I would sit here and listen to all of the Ave Maria, but we can get to the significance of it. What is going on here? Is this the first time that the Ave Maria has been sung at an American political rally, at a presidential rally? I can't think of any other example. There isn't often a lot of Latin that is that is spoken or sung at these, much less Latin in a traditional hymn, a prayer actually, the Hail Mary, and specifically a prayer associated with Catholics. What is going on here? We'll get to that in one moment. First, though, I want to tell you about First Liberty Institute. Go to supremecoup.com/Knowles. Let me tell you about a looming threat to our constitutional republic that the establishment media won't cover. The radical left is plotting a Supreme Court coup, and they are not even trying to hide it anymore. These progressive ideologues want to eliminate the court's conservative majority by packing it with their own hand-picked justices. It is not court reform, it is a blatant power grab to get the outcomes that they want. Here's the frightening part. If one party controls the House, Senate, and presidency come January, they could restructure the court overnight. With a simple majority vote and the president's signature, their plan becomes a reality. We've already seen the playbook. Made-up ethical attacks on justices, illegal protests at their homes, and open threats from so-called representatives. It's Venezuela-style court packing, and it would spell the end of judicial independence and the rule of law as we know it. But there is hope. First Liberty is leading the charge to protect the Supreme Court from this radical plan. They are fighting to preserve the legitimacy of the court and the separation of powers that safeguards our freedoms. Don't let them Venezuela your United States. Go to supremecoup.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. That is Supreme, COUP.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to learn how you can stop the left's takeover of the Supreme Court. The future of our country is quite literally in your hands. Check out supremecoup.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, today. A lot of people are going to be scratching their heads as to how an apparently lapsed Presbyterian whose supporters are largely non-denominational Protestants would wind up in a field in Pennsylvania with about 100,000 other supporters listening to, in some cases singing, the Ave Maria, a prayer for all Christians, a very ancient prayer, but that is specifically associated with Catholics. Add on to that President Trump's recent social media posts. He posted on the Feast of the Nativity of Our Lady, on Mary's birthday. And he posted on Truth Social, he said, "Happy birthday, Mary." And he posted an icon, or he posted the image from the tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is this image that converted millions and millions of people in the Western Hemisphere, a miraculous image venerated in the Catholic Church. So it's specifically associated with Catholics. Then he posted later the St. Michael prayer on the Feast of St. Michael, Michaelmas, which is an ancient Christian feast celebrated not only by Catholics, also by the Eastern Orthodox and also by some Protestants, Anglicans, and Lutherans. But he posted a prayer written by Pope Leo XIII. What's going on here? Why is it the case that there seems to be such a Catholic influence, not just on the Trump campaign, but on the whole MAGA movement? Not just on the whole MAGA movement, but on conservatism broadly. I mean, J.D. Vance obviously is Catholic. Someone on the social media team would appear to be Catholic. Melania was raised Catholic. The conservative intellectual movement has been Catholic for a long time. William F. Buckley Jr., Russell Kirk, Phyllis Schlafly. I'm just naming a handful. A lot of the present people in D.C. are Catholic. A lot of grassroots. What is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. This is not surprising, at least should not be surprising, if you've read your Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America. This is probably the greatest read on American politics, on early American politics, written all the way back in the early 19th century. In Book 1, Chapter 6 of Democracy in America, Alexis de Tocqueville writes, "I am inclined to believe that our posterity will tend more and more to a single division into two parts, a single division religiously into two parts, some relinquishing Christianity entirely and others returning to the bosom of the Church of Rome." So Tocqueville famously he's a Frenchman, he comes to America, he tours around all these small little towns in New England, he travels all around America, and he writes his take on American democracy, which has been lauded ever since as one of the most insightful analyses of the American Republic. And yet, there's this little part in here, Book 1, Chapter 6, where he says, I think Americans are going to end up either Catholic or atheist. I think those are the two divisions they're going to tend toward. And as we live and breathe, we are seeing those two divisions expand. What is his reasoning? Why is it that America is going to end up Catholic or atheist? Well, his reasoning, he writes, is that men living in democratic ages are therefore very prone to shake off all religious authority. But if they consent to subject themselves to any authority of this kind, they choose, at least, that it should be single and uniform. Religious powers not radiating from a common center are naturally repugnant to their minds, and they almost as readily conceive that there should be no religion as that there should be several. That's his reasoning. You can take it or leave it, but that is why Tocqueville predicted that this Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania would sound and look like this. Now, you might say, well, there are a lot of Catholics in Pennsylvania. Sure, there are Catholics in Pennsylvania. There are a lot of Catholics in a lot of different parts of America. I don't think there being some Catholics in Pennsylvania would explain this. You don't see this kind of thing from the Mitt Romney campaign or the John McCain campaign or the Bush campaign or the other Bush campaign. This is increasing. The Catholicity of conservatism and MAGA and Trump is at least aesthetically and at least rhetorically, is increasing. And it isn't just Trump, and it isn't just the handful of people around Trump. I'm inclined to believe that Tocqueville was right about a lot of things, and this seed was planted long ago, and history has been moving in this direction. Now, speaking of the shooting, Republican Senator Ron Johnson has questions about the shooting, and he is entertaining the theory that perhaps Trump was not almost murdered in that field in Pennsylvania merely by some weird 20-year-old who was registered as a Republican but who voted for Democrats and I guess supported Joe Biden and who we don't really know anything about and who had no social media footprint, and the whole thing was just a little strange. Maybe there was a second shooter.
We interviewed one of the snipers on Hercules 2. That was the team that was obstructed by a tree, couldn't see crooks. In the testimony, and we haven't interviewed the other guy, but that sniper said he thought, when he started hearing shots fired, he thought his partner was hit because he heard the zip crack of a bullet fly to his left. He looks over, he wasn't. He said, how far do you think that bullet was to our left? And his partner goes, I thought it was to the right. They're 6 feet apart. So as it stands right now, the testimony is a bullet flew between Hercules 2, the second sniper team. They couldn't see crooks. Crooks couldn't see them, which puts pressure on the FBI, and I just put on them today. When are we going to get your ballistics report, your bullet trajectory report, the audio report from, where's your analysis?
So Senator Johnson is not exactly the most tinfoil hat, eccentric member of the upper chamber. Okay, he's a pretty reserved guy, a pretty staid guy, put together, not one taken to flights of fancy. And he's saying, look, I've listened to the testimony, and the testimony right now is that there is a bullet that flew between these two sniper teams. So maybe they just misheard, or I don't know, but these are pretty highly trained guys. So anyway, we have to at least entertain the possibility that there was a different trajectory for at least one of the bullets than we've been told. And if that is the case, then it might change our understanding of what happened in that field in Pennsylvania just 2 days before the Republican National Convention that would have nominated Trump, or might not have nominated Trump, I guess, had he been dead, and that occurred just 8 days before Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. It raises questions, not just for the crazy internet people, but even for people as reserved and moderate as Senator Johnson. So then, what are we supposed to conclude? Especially that they don't have the ballistics report. We don't know. I mean, this happened a little while ago now, guys. How come the FBI is not getting the U.S. Senate the kind of information that it's requesting? It raises questions, especially because palace coups occur throughout history. It isn't that unusual for a big political leader to be assassinated, or for someone to try to assassinate him, or for powerful people within the society to try to assassinate him. That isn't unusual at all. It's not unusual. I mean, a disproportionate number of American presidents have been assassinated or have had attempts on their life. And palace coups happen. A soft palace coup happened just 8 days after the near assassination of Trump in the Biden campaign, when the Biden campaign locked him up in his house in Delaware and then posted something to social media saying, I'm dropping out of the race, forced him out. These things happen all the time. Add to all of that this talk about Trump posing an existential threat to the Republic, Hitler 2.0, it's at least possible. It's at least possible that something else happened in Pennsylvania than we have been officially told, especially as so much information has been withheld, especially as one of the explanations as to why law enforcement or Secret Service didn't make it up onto the roof where the shooter was positioned was because the roof was sloped. Well, we had agents up there yesterday, so I guess they figured out how to get over the very slight slope on the roof. There are just a lot of holes in the story. And so I think Senator Johnson is totally right to keep pressing on this, and I think every day that the federal government doesn't get the Republican senators' information, it raises even more questions. Now, when you want to fix problems within your organization, you ought to check out RAMP. Go to ramp.com/Knowles. Managing your business finances can feel like trying to balance the federal budget. A nightmare. But unlike our friends in Washington, you actually have to make the numbers work. Are you feeling trapped by finance software that's about as useful as a paperweight in a windstorm? Well, I've got news for you. It is time to ramp up your financial game with Ramp. Ramp is a corporate card and spend management software designed to help you save time and put money back in your pocket. First off, Ramp gives you control like you wouldn't believe. We're talking issuing cards to every single employee, but with limits and restrictions that you set. Expense reporting, it's automated. No more wasting time at the end of every month trying to piece together who spent what. Now, let's talk about the accounting side. Ramp's software automatically collects receipts and categorizes your expenses in real time. The kicker? You will be closing your books 8 times faster. That's right, 8 times. But Ramp is not just about saving time. It's about saving money. On average, businesses using Ramp save 5% in their first year. That is real money back in your business. Here's the best part. Ramp is so easy to use. Get started in less than 15 minutes, whether you have 5 employees or 5,000. Now, get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/Knowles, Knowles, ramp.com/Knowles. Really big and important news. And oh boy, I got to bring my blood pressure down when I tell you this news. This was going viral on the internet yesterday. Your boy's been ripped off, okay? Your favorite author of blank books, yours truly, has been ripped off. There is a new book that has hit the shelves. I take it from this video in Walmart, The Achievements of Kamala Harris by Jason Duda, maybe. I can't quite tell the name of the author because just the way that it's filmed. A book filled with blank pages. And then I think it's on Amazon too, the description of the book actually mimics some of our language. In my magnum opus, #1 bestseller on all of Amazon and still selling well today, Reasons to Vote for Democrats, a comprehensive guide, also filled with blank pages. Now, if I sue this man, his legal defense, of course, could be that he stole nothing. And I don't know the case law on this, so I don't know if I'm really, he better lawyer up, but I don't know if I could really bring suit. Of course, there have been blank books before mine. There was Everything Men Know About Women, that's a good one. The Wit and Wisdom of Spiro T. Agnew, that was another one. It actually goes back to 1880, so maybe I don't have much of a case. And good on this guy, because it made me realize when this joke came out, I'm sure it's obviously his thesis is totally correct. It made me think, wow, man, it's been 7, almost 8 years since my blank book. That's a long time. 7, almost 8 years since I had my blank magnum opus out there. And yet, nothing about politics has changed. And I don't mean that in the sense that, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, you know? This is how this is life. It's eternal. No, I mean it much more practically and literally. We have the same candidates. I mean, Trump, 8 years later, Trump is still the candidate. He's still the Republican nominee. And you might say, well, Kamala wasn't the nominee in 2016. Sure, but Kamala was the VP for Joe Biden. Joe Biden was the VP for Barack Obama, who Trump was following. And more broadly, Hillary was the candidate. And more broadly, Kamala, Biden, Hillary are all the exact same kind of candidate. They're just avatars of the liberal establishment. There's nothing particularly novel or individual about them. Hillary Clinton just is. She has formed so much of the Democrat establishment. Joe Biden is just a total empty suit. And then Kamala Harris was the empty pantsuit for the empty suit in office. So it's all just the same kind of thing. They're just, they basically keep the same suit and they just replace the person who's in it. And then you have Trump there who's the same candidate. Furthermore, not only do we have the same candidates that we had, or the same types of candidates we had in 2016, they're running on the same issues. The weird stuff and migration and free speech to a lesser degree. And then, not only do we have the same candidates and the same issues, but we even have the same jokes. Because in 2016, you had my book, Reasons to Vote for Democrats, and now you have the achievements of Kamala Harris. It just feels like we are stuck in this morass of the status quo. Fashions don't change as much anymore. Candidates don't change. Issues don't change. It's just I don't know what it is. Is this a technological fact that as technology has advanced, we're all just locked in exactly the same place? We're in the eternal present. Is this an ideological fact that as the ideology of presentism has advanced, the notion that the past was totally terrible and we should just, remain in a perpetual present and ignore the wisdom of our ancestors and our own history? I don't know what it is, but it's like Groundhog Day. This is the Groundhog Day campaign, and who knows, we might be in just a Groundhog Day of politics. There is one thing that has changed, specifically over the past 4 years, and that is the cost of everything. There's a new report out, this is from Investopedia. The cost of the American dream, as many people understand it today, the lifetime cost, take a guess. I told you at the top of the show, but if you weren't paying attention or you were just tuning in now, $4.4 million. If you want to have the American dream as it is presently understood, over the course of your life, that will require $4.4 million. That's a lot of scratch. How? What's the breakdown? According to Investopedia, you need $1.6 million for retirement. You need $930,000 for home ownership. And you might say, well, I don't need to live in $1 million house. Why is it $900,000? It's $930,000 because you'll have a mortgage, presumably, and right now our interest rates are a little bit high, and maybe you'll have multiple homes over the course of your life, but even if you just have one, it adds up. All that interest adds up. Raising 2 kids, the cost is $832,000 right now. owning new cars, if you want to own new cars, $811,000 over the course of your life. Annual vacations, $179,000. Wedding, $44,000 is the cost they expect. Pets, this one's shocking, $37,000 to have a pet. And then your funeral will cost $8,000, probably more by the time we die. What does this mean? How, if Trump and Vance are running on restoring the American dream, Kamala and Joe Biden and Tim Walz, now her running mate, they don't talk about the American dream as much. They don't like America, and their policies are nightmares. So the only dreams they talk about are the dreamers, which is like the 50-year-old gangsters who come over with MS-13 and assault your family and kill people. But we pretend that it's like doughy-eyed 8-year-olds who are just trying to have a break in school. In any case, they don't really talk about that. It's Trump and Vance. How are they going to restore the American dream? Well, we need one thing that the Republicans are offering that the Democrats are not. That's pro-growth policies. It means you really do need to grow the economy. There's no substitute for winning. You have to expand the pie. You need to get America growing again. But even then, even if you do have some regulatory policies that will be beneficial to the American worker, the American family, it's still not going to bring you all the way to $4.4 million. What else do you need? Well, I think you need a reshaping of priorities. Because what the most glaring aspect of this analysis to me is the raising two kids part. That's it? That's all we're aiming at now in America? Raising two kids? That's below replacement. Replacement has to be a little bit higher than two kids because people die and because accidents happen. And so, really it's 2.1 or 2.3 kids is replacement. That's what we're aiming at in America, just two kids? That's like a big family now. How crazy is that? What if how about 3 kids? How about 4 kids? How about we get back to the days when it was normal for Americans to have 5 or 6 kids? How about we get back to the days when it was normal, at least for certain religious groups, the Catholics, the Mormons, and the Orthodox Jews, to have 8, 9, or 10 kids? How about that, huh? Wow, boy, or more. Then it's going to cost even more. So what does that mean? All right, well, you got to retire. So the 1.6 million seems pretty firm there. Maybe you could live with your kids. Intergenerational housing, that's something that we used to have. We don't really have anymore. That'd be okay. Home ownership, maybe we used to have, when we talk about how your grandparents were able to get a home for significantly less money, well, in part it's because their homes were just less nice than the homes we build today. Maybe you need a smaller kind of home. Those homes don't really exist anymore. Maybe we need to start building them. Raising 2 kids, that's going to cost a lot to raise. Maybe you don't send your kid to the private school. Maybe you don't buy your kid the nicest new electronics or the nicest new clothing. But maybe you don't have to buy all the nicest food, but you buy the normal food and you buy the less expensive clothing. And you don't have all the electronics. Owning new cars, how about you drive an old car? You don't need to drive a new car. Used cars are expensive now, but you could just drive the same car that you have. Annual vacations, maybe you don't take a vacation every single year. Maybe you downscale your vacations. The wedding, maybe you don't need to spend $44,000 on that. Pets, good grief. I hate to say that the Haitians have a point here, but the Haitians take it too far. But we don't need to treat our pets like they're children. We used to treat our pets like pets. You shouldn't treat your pets like a rotisserie chicken on the one hand, but you also shouldn't treat your pets like a baby and put them in a little stroller and send them off to college. They're pets. You should treat them like little pets. We need pro-growth policies, but we need a reshaping of priorities, a return to the priorities that we had that prioritized family over stuff and that prioritized human beings over dogs and cars. We need to return to the priorities that we had when our country was growing. That's a big part of making America great again. Speaking of the cost of goods, President Trump has just defended a controversial policy to our friend Dave Ramsey. Trump defended tariffs.
The word tariff to me is a very beautiful word because it can save our country, truly. And yet, I think because of graft, because of a lot of consulting payments and other things that given by other countries, we have so much fighting with politicians on using it. I saved our steel industries by putting tariffs on steel that China came in and dumped. And you know what they do? They dump and dump and dump. Everybody goes out of business. Then they buy those businesses very cheap, and then they raise the prices to higher than they ever were. That's one of the many benefits that they have if they want to do it. But by putting tariffs on, as an example, in the furniture business in North Carolina, it was so vibrant, and they stole our business. And they charge us, if you wanted to build a furniture place, if you want to sell your furniture in China, they won't take it. But if you want to build a plant in China to make furniture in China using their labor, they open it. We're doing the same thing.
So what you were probably taught in school, if you're of a certain age, these days, if you're under 20, say, you were probably just taught to go do a bunch of weird sex stuff and that America's evil and that God doesn't exist. But if you're a little older than that, and maybe even if you're still younger, you're probably taught tariffs don't work. We were told tariffs don't work. Free trade works, and tariffs are bad. That was how I was taught 19th and 20th century history. Trump here is giving very practical examples. He says, and he said this in 2016, he said, hey, if tariffs don't work, how come every other country uses them? How come it seems like they all think it works? China thinks it works. So he says, I don't know, I think a tariff can work. And he explains practical scenarios in which a tariff might work in the present, because he's a business guy. He's a pretty practical guy. But then already you're thinking, well, Trump is digging in a little bit more on this issue. Maybe he's not a total idiot, like the economists of a certain breed would say that he is. Then he goes on and gives the historical understanding of tariffs.
But a lot of people are, we don't want to have tariffs. The country was at the richest point in its history in the 1890s. It was all tariffs. If you looked at William McKinley as an example, he was a big tariff president. They had committees that were put in charge of what to do with the money. We were taking in so much money. And McKinley would say, why should we let other people come in and steal our factories and steal our workers and steal our jobs? And why shouldn't we benefit? And he tariffed the other countries. And we made so much, and then they went to the income tax system later on. But they would actually they had a blue ribbon committee. Our country was so rich, they didn't know what to do with the money. And this blue ribbon committee was set up to determine how can we spend all of this money, and they took it in through tariffs. But we can turn our country around, make it strong, and then guard it with tariffs.
So President Trump goes back to President McKinley, who was a big tariff guy. He could go back even further to President Abraham Lincoln, who said, give us a tariff and we'll have the greatest nation on earth. So there is a case. I'm not saying tariffs are a cure-all to economic problems. I'm not saying free trade is a terrible thing. What I'm saying is there is a case for tariffs. There is a case for economic protection. The case for free trade, which leads inevitably to globalized markets, when other countries don't institute their tariffs and just game the system. Globalized markets lead inevitably to global political institutions to govern those international markets, which leads inevitably to globalism. I'm saying free trade isn't perfect. There is a case, a political and economic case, against total free trade. And even, I know this is going to rankle the feathers of certain Republicans and conservatives, but conservatives especially should know, of course there have to be problems with free trade. No political solution to anything is perfect in this fallen world. There are always going to be trade-offs. There are always going to be costs and there are going to be benefits. That's what Trump is pointing out, which means that Trump is demonstrating greater economic and political insight than basically our entire political and economic elite class for the past quarter century, at least. Today is your final chance to join Daily Wire Plus at 47% off. Use code FIGHT at dailywire.com/subscribe before midnight. Do not miss out on unlimited access to the truth with uncensored daily shows from the most trusted names in conservative media, completely ad-free. This is your last chance to get live breaking news coverage and the hard-hitting investigative journalism that the libs don't want you to see at this incredible discount. Time is running out. Join the fight now before this 47% off deal expires at midnight tonight. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code FIGHT for your exclusive discount. That is dailywire.com/subscribe. Code FIGHT for 47% off new Daily Wire Plus memberships. My favorite comment on Friday is from Phoenix Rising 1675, who says, I've had an abortion and I'm here to say you never get over it, ever. even after 30 years. It's not my favorite comment because of what you went through. I'm very sorry for you and for your baby and for the regret that you feel, of course. Or at least the shame and the guilt. The regret, though, of course, is natural. And it's, as I say, I know a number of women who have had abortions. They all regret it. Most of them, I would say, admit that they regret it. Some of them, they just demonstrate that they regret it. But it's a little bit more implicit, or it only comes out every so often. But they all regret it. They all do. This is the biggest lie. I was at the Live Action Gala. I love Live Action, fabulous pro-life organization that specifically educates about pro-life and changes minds on abortion. And the biggest lie, I think, that the abortion industry tells women is not that the baby's not a baby or whatever, because I think most women deep down know that the baby is a baby. It's very hard to have a baby growing inside you and you don't know. I think a lot of women just gaslight themselves and a lot of the men just ignore it. It's a baby, but the biggest lie that the pro-abortion movement tells you is, hey, if you commit this action that you know is wrong, if you kill your baby, you'll be free. You'll be happy. You have to do this. Your life will be terrible if you don't kill your baby. This will be liberating. And it's not. And this is what the devil does. The devil whispers in your ear and says, hey, that sin that you're thinking about committing, that sin, it's no big deal. It's no big deal at all. Just do it. It's no big deal. And then the minute you do it, he says, that's the biggest deal in the world. You're totally unlovable. You can never be forgiven. You're irredeemable. You might as well keep sinning because what you just did is the worst. Hey, devil, you just told me that wasn't a big deal. Huh? What were you talking about? It's the biggest deal ever. That's what the devil does. He says at first he says you won't be punished. Then he says you won't be forgiven. Both of which are lies. Speaking of tariffs, Peter Navarro, who is a senior White House advisor to President Trump and probably the most prominent pro-tariff voice in the Trump administration, he was just on a panel on MSNBC with a guy, Gordon Sondland, who testified at the impeachment trial, testified against President Trump. And Sondland is coming out on MSNBC and saying, yeah, I can't vote for Kamala. I'm with Trump.
A no for you after that. Why was it important for you to say no more Trump because of his January 6th conduct? And do you stand by that?
No, I don't stand by it, and I'll tell you why. I've now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies, and I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies as well.
So when you I'll let you finish, but this is so striking. You said it was a no for me after that, after January 6th.
I did.
And here we are right now.
I did.
And you're saying it's a yes for you.
It is a yes for me. It is an absolute yes for me. That is how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job.
But the whole point you seem to be making was that January 6th and that kind of attack on democracy is bigger than any policy.
But I am seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th.
So I want to ask Sarah,
if you want to ask me what those are.
My favorite part of this whole clip, you see that right there at the end, that little smile from Peter Navarro as he hears the line, the most important line from Sondland, who says, yeah, I know, threats on democracy. I know that's why I ditched Trump. We have seen far greater threats to democracy under Biden and Harris. And why is that there that little smirk from Peter Navarro? Because Peter Navarro just got out of jail after the Democrats jailed him. Unprecedented to jail a senior White House advisor for defying a congressional subpoena. And Navarro's not the only one. They did the same thing to Steve Bannon. That's a threat on democracy. That's a threat on the separation of powers. Congress really has no right to do that. If Congress has ever, in principle, had such a right, they've not exercised it. It disturbs the balance of powers in the country. To imprison one's political opponents simply for holding different political views obviously is an undermining of American democracy, of the republic. Peter Navarro knows that very well. Gordon Sondland knows that very well. He opens up, he says, this administration has been absolutely terrible. The policies have been absolutely terrible. But then he says, it's not just the economy, and it's not just even immigration. It's a fundamental undermining of the American country. Now, some anti-Trump Republicans are sticking with it, such as Adam Kinzinger. Remember him? He was sort of the Ethel to Liz Cheney's Lucy. Adam Kinzinger, he would cry during congressional testimony. He's an interesting one. Adam Kinzinger has launched not just an anti-Trump group, but now an anti-Ted Cruz group, a group that is supporting Colin Allred, the Democrat who's running against Senator Cruz, down in Texas. Allred just announced this in local news down there, Houston Chronicle and ABC 13, and said that the Republicans for Allred coalition will feature former Republicans, and it's a bunch of two-bit players who no one's ever heard of. State Rep Jason Villalba, and a handful of people, and their big superstar, former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Now, every campaign does this. Every campaign has Republicans for this Democrat, or Democrats for this Republican, or it happens in every campaign, local, all the way up to presidential. In principle, it's no surprise. The Kinzinger of it all shows you the game, though, because Kinzinger said, look, I'm a Republican. I'm a principled Republican. It's not just that I'm a squishy Republican, and that's why I want to support a Democrat, which is usually the case in these Democrats for Republican or Republicans for Democrat. It's usually these squishy, liberal, moderate, centrist types who they flip sides in plenty of elections. Kinzinger, he said, no, I'm so conservative. This is the whole Never Trump movement. I'm so supremely conservative and principled and right-wing that I could never vote for this Republican. I'm so principled, I'm going to vote for the Democrat. Okay. All right, maybe there's just something about Trump that really got to the guy, really broke the guy. But what about Cruz? Hold on here. It seems to me that your problem is not really just with Trump, that your problem is with Trump and Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon and all the people around Trump. And it's not just the people around Trump, it's also the senators and congressmen who are really close to Trump. But it's not even just the senators and congressmen who are really close to Trump. It's also the chief rival to Trump in 2016. Don't forget, when the election came down to it, it was Trump versus Cruz. So now it just seems like you have a problem with Republicans, which I think is basically what this has always been about. In the very early days, Never Trump might have had some real fears about Trump. But today, first of all, by 2017, anyone who was still saying they were Never Trump was just a Democrat. But certainly by 2020, by 2024, it was never just about Trump. It was about you. And that's what Trump has said for some years now. It's probably the most famous meme of his campaign. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I'm in the way. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I don't like the uniparty Democrat establishment, where the Democrats play the leading role and then the Republicans play the supporting role, and they exist to be court jesters in the kingdom of liberalism and to justify the liberal regime. And they'll put up some opposition, but on the crucial issues, when it comes down to it, on migration, on foreign policy, even on economic policy, they'll cave. Certainly on liberty, on our civil liberties and on the structure of our government, they'll cave. And Trump said, no, what if we don't do that? What if we do something at least a little bit different? That's what this is about. It was never just about Trump. Today is Music Monday, baby. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.